Apparently they can hear us. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks, the proud home of the University of North Dakota. This is the time and place for the Growth Fund Committee meeting. We'll begin with roll call, please.
Prairie.
Here.
Dockler. Here. Holf.
Here.
Gvami.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Whitney. Here. Wolf.
Here.
All present.
Wonderful, thank you. First item of business, minutes, the approval of minutes from March 22nd, 2021. There's no questions or corrections. We have a motion from Mr. Holt. A second from Mr. Cavani. Thanks. Hearing no further comments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Very good. Item number 3, PACE loan request, ODRA. Mr. Baumbach.
Members of the committee, Brandon Baumbach, Grand Forks Region EDC. I'm excited to present another project here for you today with ODRA. They are an original equipment manufacturer for street sweepers with a corporate HQ located right here in Grand Forks, North Dakota. It's fun to see everybody's faces here. It's been a little while. ODRA has experienced a lot of growth over the past several years and anticipates continuation of this trend here in the near future. They're outgrowing their current location and are looking to situate a second building on that same location. Mirek Bazinski, one of the owners of the company, is here just to provide a little narrative around what has happened over these past few years and just where they're headed.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Baumbach. Welcome, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Mirek Bazinski, and we established our company in Grand Forks in 2012. And I have to say that we're lucky enough that we're growing all the time, and we're lucky also that COVID didn't impact us too much. Recently, we started to sell service parts for our sweepers through all US from one location, and that's in Grand Forks. And because of this, we need really to build a warehouse that we can put all the parts in one building. We have right now almost over 1,000 sweepers across US. We should have a good sales of the parts from Grand Forks. That's why plus we also, we're expanding our product line, and we'll put a few new models of the sweepers on the market as well. That's all this pushes us to get, another one bigger building to do all the work.
Very good. It's happy news for your company, and we're fortunate here in Grand Forks that we are the home of ODRA's headquarters. So
thank you.
Yes.
We're also fortunate because this is such a great place to work. Very good environment. I'm really happy.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Baumbach.
Yes, thank you. I'll just articulate the financial request. The total project is expected just under $1.5 million with the company equity of $362,000. That'd be the remainder portion of the loan. And this is a PACE request to buy down the interest rate from 5.6% to 1% on the $1,887,000 note from First State Bank. This is a request of you for $148,000 to leverage $276,000 from the Bank of North Dakota. Loan to value is very strong at 63%, secured through a mortgage on the property, corporate guarantee, and personal guarantees. Just a note, there is currently a PACE loan on the current building, and it's asked that this or alongside these two, the current PACE loans take a second position behind all the First State Bank mortgages on those properties, which is something we've done in the past and quite normal. This has been seen by the EDC and approved from the Board of Directors on April 1st during their meeting. And then lastly, we are joined by First State Bank lender John Wolfgram, I think, over the phone in case there are any questions for the bank. Mirek is here, or myself stand for any questions at this point.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Baumbach? in the words of Hal Gershman, bring us more deals like this. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just a quick comment, or maybe a question. Do you anticipate with the potential infrastructure package bill going through, well, assuming we get an infrastructure bill passed in this administration, will that, I'm assuming that would be pretty good for business then, if there's get ahead of it, right? Get the warehouse built now, get some units available, get some production ramped up, and then you'll be ready for all the increased demand, I would assume, correct?
Yes.
Keep those fingers crossed then, right? Get the infrastructure package. Thank you. Well, thank you.
And is that a motion then?
Yes. So moved.
We have a motion for Mr. Curry. And any further, looking for a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further questions? Otherwise, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 4, C-Run loan request, Paragon Pro, and HB Sound and Light.
Mr. Weber, we're going to do this a
Thank
little
you.
differently today.
Okay.
Paragon Pro took a kind of an unusual path to C-Run. They had been working with Brandon at the EDC on a conventional EDRLF loan, and we kind of redirected them to this loan once we got into the defederalization. So since Brandon has worked with them for quite a while, he'll present this one, and then we'll bring Colin in to do the more conventional loan from HB.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Richards. Mr. Baumbach.
Paragon Pro, a company that you may recall took ownership of Telpro in 2018 and has since really grown that company for continual growth year over year. COVID-19 has had a negative impact, but in a slightly different way than some of the other C-Run applications perhaps. It's created more demand for their products, all told, but it's brought on a cash flow challenge due to some supply chain issues that were happening. Trent Baumer with the company is here just to provide you a little bit of a narrative around that and just where they're headed, and then I'll come back up here to articulate the financial request.
Very good. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hey,
Hey.
thanks for having me today. I just want to introduce, I was here last time, but one of my partners is back there, Trevor Baumer. He does all our purchasing and things like that. He came with me today. Just wanted you guys to get to meet him real quick. He's going to kind of stay in the background, but I just wanted to go over some stuff, and I'm kind of taking us back to 2018 when we purchased Telpro. In the first 2 years, we were able to become profitable, and we also doubled sales, almost doubled sales. We were able to retain all the 21 employees Telpro had. We've been able to do some wage increases and added 7 full-time and 11 more part-time people since we took over. We've also done, we've gotten a fiber optic laser, a CNC lathe, and then we've purchased the building, which you guys have helped us do from 2018 to 2020. In 2020, we were projected to increase another 16%, and then COVID hit, and in the first quarter, we were down 13% revenue, and in the second quarter, we were down 11% revenue. And we were getting a lot of people calling us, and they were canceling orders worth hundreds of thousands of dollars with us. So also steel prices, we had a shortage in steel, so all the steel prices have increased. And so we kind of got a little bit panicked after that started to happen, being down that far. So we grabbed our sales team and we came up with a plan, and we were trying to manage our growth when we first started. And we just decided we were going to go after everything we possibly could. And so we started adding customers basically weekly, monthly, everything like that. And by the end of the year, we were able to become 1% what we were the year before, within 1% revenue. And being that we lost 13 and 11% in the first 2 quarters, we added a lot of people for customers and things like that over the course of 2020. We also did get the Paycheck Protection Program money That helped a lot, being able to order steel in advance a little bit farther and things like that. But now in 2020, 2021, we're seeing that, so the country's kind of opening back up and things like that, and customers that canceled the orders are starting to put them in, and so now we got all these new customers and everything like that, so it's all hitting us at one time, and because of that, we're seeing growth in the first 2 months. We got 66% in January, 67% in February. March was 39% growth. It would have been higher if we could have got more steel and things like that. So, and this year we have several contracts like Lowe's Rental, and there's a company in Canada that wants to order $2 million worth of catwalks from us that we haven't even started doing yet. So we're asking for this money to help us pay to get steel more in advance, so we can bring it in faster, so we can start producing more and then hire more people. So.
It's a great story. Thanks.
Thanks.
Any questions, committee members, at this time? Mr. Bombach.
Yeah, and maybe you'll stay by, close by, Trent. I can articulate the request. It's through the C-Run program. It's for those who are impacted by COVID, and clearly that's been articulated here. The request is for $200,000, which is the upper bounds of what was, or one of the limits we had set for the programmatic changes recently made. $200,000 for 1% over 60 months, given its operating capital, with a 12-month deferral. The loan to value on this is 97%. Not out of normal where we are, but it's indicative of just how this company has kept the foot on the gas pedal in growth and has continued to push for reinvestment in the new machines that Trent had mentioned, and has put them in a position where now this cash flow would make a world of difference. It is secured through a blanket UCC filing and personal guarantees, which are liquid, which are satisfactory to handle any kind of a bad day. This is EDC approved as well. As Meredith mentioned, that was considered under the EDARLF request at the start of April. Trent and Trevor are here, but also is Scott Schultz, who is the lender from Bremer Bank, who is their lender and has been a part of the conversations all the while, so he would be happy to comment as well if there are any questions for him. Otherwise, questions for any or all of us?
Fantastic to have a request already under the new C-Run guidelines. So nice work to the whole team there. Any questions for Mr. Bombach? Mr. Wolf, please.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Mr. Bauer, for being here, and congratulations on working hard to make up that lost ground in 2020. Thanks for being here. You've done a nice job of explaining to me why this is necessary. A couple of questions then. So with the rising cost of steel, and it is dramatic, is that something that you feel you're able to pass that on to your customers? I mean, as far as hold your margin, or how does that work with that substantial of a rising price of steel? That's my first question.
So because of some of the customers we have, we're not able to pass that on. We're working with say Amazon, for instance. Amazon kind of controls the market, and if we can't get a price increase to Amazon, then if we price increase everybody else, it's going to make it an unfair advantage. So we're not able to pass on the price increase of the steel and everything like that for a lot of our products. We have started doing some different things with Amazon, like we're not accepting the bulk orders to try to combat some of it and things like that, so they're not getting a discount anymore. So, but overall, no, we can't do it. But because of the growth that we've had, we're able to keep our costs where they are, and we're still profitable. So.
Thank you. That was so if you can't pass it on, still profitable, and yeah. Which is was my follow-up question. The 4 FTEs, then, that's just a function of you're going to have more volume, right? It's a good thing, and you need those to get that through the system. Other than that, I think I saw question for Brandon. It looks like we've got the security turn down letter on file, and so basically it fits within the program requirements. So thank you. I don't have any other further questions.
And was that perhaps also a motion? Or any further questions? Ms. Whitney?
I think just in thinking about that increased growth, do you see that that will continue to increase, or what kind of plans do you have around retention for that growth to kind of maintain covering those costs if the steel's not going to kind of course correct itself?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're thinking the steel prices are going to come back down in fall. Maybe I'll just stay out there.
Thanks, Kyle.
With everything I'm reading, the steel prices should start to trend back down in fall. We're kind of thinking next year, but that's what they're saying. It's going to happen. And then as far as growth, we have so much growth and we need so many people, and that's why we need the money. And we don't see it slowing down at all. It's just going to keep growing. Like I mentioned, we still have that Lowe's rental that's going to be starting. There's going to be 2,000 stores that are going to open over the next 5 years, and then it's going to be repeat business because they're going to resupply those stores. We have 6 products going into those stores, so we're just going to keep replacing those every 3 years. They're supposed to be doing, and then we got that other company, and I can't say the name of it yet, but it's in Canada, and they want about $2 million worth of catwalks. It's going to take a few years to build. So we just keep growing and can't just keep enough on the shelf. So.
All right, thank you. That's my only question.
Move approval? We have a motion from Mr. Kvamme
I'll second.
and a second from Mr. Wolf. Any further comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Congratulations on your success and growth there. It's wonderful to have 3 local Grand Forks companies here today. Mr. Hanson, HB Sound and Light.
Thank you, Chair Weber, members of the committee. This is the second C-Run loan before you tonight from HB Sound and Light. Jamie and Tricia Lunsky are here with us, the owners of HB. They have 3 different aspects of their business. The first is event-related, renting equipment, staging, lighting, audio, all that great stuff. They also promote events through that portion of their business. They have a second division which installs audio, video, security, and streaming services, or streaming systems, both residential and commercial. And then they have the live stream and HV Studio production services within their Grand Forks and Fargo locations. They have a couple of JDA loans, a 2014 Flex Pace, 2016 Pace, 2020 Flex Pace, and they did receive a C-Run loan already, $50,000 working capital loan. So they've been here before for the C-Run loan, but under the previous parameters of C-Run. As far as the impact, it's pretty obvious for an event-related business, especially for in-person events. Summer was especially brutal for them, where there was a drop-off in event sales compared to 2019, and that loss in sales kind of was across the whole company. They were busy with installs, but generally there was a over 50% drop in sales over 2020. And so as they get to the recovery, they're looking to do a few things, which is pivoting to live stream events, investing in cameras and streaming equipment, which they have done and hope to continue to do. They see these sort of hybrid events continuing well into the future. They have created a studio in their Grand Forks and Fargo locations. They are looking to, with this funding, as well as basically an equipment loan. They want to purchase equipment to purchase a stage line mobile stage. It helps them reduce labor costs when building outdoor stages, as well as reduce their mobilization costs. The mobile stage is really neat. It folds out. It can hold a lot of the equipment necessary they need at a location. So it really helps them become more efficient in that sense. It allows them to have capacity for more national acts. They request this specific type of stage and layout, as well as they're able to host more moderate-sized crowds outdoors. Along with that, they'd like to purchase speakers and amps for that stage. This also allows them, with this additional speakers and amplifiers, to host more than one outdoor event at once. That mindset comes with the idea, too, that there are going to be more outdoor events, as it's a good way to kind of help mitigate the potential spread of COVID-19. And events will likely continue streaming, so they would like to use the remaining of that equipment loan to purchase additional cameras, live streaming hardware, and laptops for those in-person events that'll likely retain a hybrid element. So as far as the loan terms in front of you, there's an equipment loan to purchase the stage line mobile stage with speakers and amplifiers and additional hardware and equipment for streaming hybrid events. The loan committee is recommending up to $150,000. They have already received $50,000 in a C-Run working capital loan, so this would push them up to that $200,000 cap overall between the two loans. That's at 1% interest with a 12-month deferral amortized over 7 years or 84 months. There is a UCC lien that would be against the equipment and the business assets, blanket business assets, as well as a personal guarantee required. We have received a turn-down note from the primary lender. And with that, I'll stand for any questions, and Jamie and Tricia have also agreed that if you have any questions, they're here for that as well.
Nice to see things off and running on making use of these C-Run loans, these funds. Any questions from committee members? Mr. Wolf, please.
Yeah, thank you to the Lunskys for being here today. Colin, Mr. Hanson, nice job in summarizing this. With the equipment, now this is the first one we would have with equipment here, and I know that there's a UCC lien on the equipment. Something that I don't know if we talked about would be purchase money security interest within the specific equipment. Is that something that we've discussed, or should we discuss as far as with the specific equipment being purchased to where we could perfect that lien?
Yeah, it's going to be secured against the equipment itself. And in addition to that, the discussions we have is that the equipment purchase needs to have a useful life beyond just the term of the loan as well, to help us retain that security. And we also have a blanket UCC against the business already for the first C-Run loan.
Sure, so the blanket UCC would be across the assets, but then with the equipment that will be purchased, there's a way to specifically fund that. It's would be purchase money security interest. Mr. Gausdad's nodding at me, but is that something that we'd be able to specifically with the equipment we're purchasing, take that as collateral for this loan?
I would defer to Mr. Gaustad on that.
What you're describing is when you're using proceeds to actually buy an asset, loan proceeds, that you get a first priority position because you're providing the funds to acquire the asset. And I think if my memory serves me, I haven't looked at this obviously, but if my memory serves me, purchase money security interest is by definition, if you prove up that you've provided the funds to purchase it, you get that priority lien. It may not, it will come to fruition if you ever get into debate with another creditor as to who was the purchase money security interest holder. But what you're describing to me sounds to me like it is going to be purchase money, because we're going to be providing the money so they can go buy the assets. So I think we'd get the priority position with respect to those particular assets, not assets that are existing with, not the blanket security interest.
Thank you, Mr. Gaustad. That was my request. I agree.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Cavalli.
So are you going to follow up, or is Mr. Gaustad going to follow up with that procedure to ensure that that's done?
Yeah, I'll certainly follow up with Mr. Gaustad.
Yeah, there really isn't a procedure other than making sure that you perfect your security interest within a timely manner. I can't remember the time period as to when it is. It's in the Article 9. Well, I call it Article 9. It's under the Uniform Commercial Code as to when you need to record your UCC filing, and it's within a certain period of time after they've received the property, or if you do it before, that would be best.
So just assuming we need to make sure that we have the correct information and make sure that's delineated, that that's from us. Okay.
Further questions from committee members? Hearing none, looking for a motion.
Move approval.
Motion for Mr. Kavami.
Second.
Second for Mr. Holt. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Mr. and Mrs. Lunsky, we're getting ready for the summer of recovery, and it sounds like you're going to be in really great shape for that. A quick question. There had been discussion about a semi-permanent stage down on the Greenway. Does this How does this affect that? I know that that had been running into some technical engineering
This
problems.
may help us with a deployment of a semi-permanent stage space down in the Greenway. I know there were some hurdles with the core and some other things like that, so this may be a good solution. It's a 30-minute deployment and a 30-minute pack-up on a stage, so
Okay.
should be pretty cool.
I look forward to attending concerts and other events.
We are
Yes.
going to do some test runs later in May. I don't know if you have the dates, but
Okay.
that's what we're planning on doing, so and we'll see what it looks like.
The event industry has been one sector that's been particularly hard hit, so I'm
Yeah, it's
very
been-
glad to see you here. Yes, great,
Thank you, guys.
thanks. We could drag things out for a while, so he only gets a few minutes, but Mr. Lund, Accelerate Loan Program, the review of the and approved program parameters for Grand Forks Accelerate.
Good
Mr.
afternoon,
Lund.
Chairman Weber, members of the committee. Pleasure to be here this evening. I do get the pleasure to walk through the program with you this afternoon. I do want to acknowledge that the staff report and the presentation have been prepared by Ms. Richards and her team at Community Development, and the information contained within the staff report that I'll discuss has been a part of a broader, very collaborative process with Community Development, the Mayor's Office, and a number of people, committee members, entrepreneurs in the community, so it's sort of vetted information. I'm going to quickly run through the elements of the staff report and then a little bit of a presentation on process. Ultimately, we're looking for feedback, taking this program outline to the JDA on the 3rd for, I guess, some version of final approval to then be put into a formal program description. So we're looking for feedback from this group recommendation, then JDA approval in a couple of weeks. So this is a program focused on high-risk capital for promising early-stage companies. These are companies. The inspiration for this program is the North Dakota LIFT program, as I think we've discussed in the past. And while we think that might create some deal flow, we're suggesting that not be a prerequisite to receive funding for this program. We might be introduced to tremendous opportunity that either by timing or for other reasons wasn't an applicant in LIFT, and we want to be able to bring those forward. The focus of this program is tech. We've had a lot of discussion about that. We're underserved in our community with respect to technology business, and I think there's a lot of synergies and I think a lot of discussion about things like the tech accelerator that we want to build in our community. And as such, the eligibility in terms of the companies that are outlined in the staff report are tech-related companies. We think we've captured all of it. If in fact we identify something later on that doesn't fit, we'll bring that opportunity to you and maybe ask for a program rewrite on that. But we think we've encompassed just about every opportunity we can identify within that scope. I'm going to quickly run through the terms. Again, much of this is mirrored after LIFT. We have a maximum loan amount suggested of $250,000. That's a local number to try to stretch the dollars out as much as we can, so that's not a LIFT requirement at all. The terms, in terms of a 5-year term, 3 years, no interest, 2 years, 2% interest with a balloon payment after 5, that completely mirrors the LIFT program, and we're presenting that to you for consideration this evening. Have a UCC filing on company assets. That actually goes beyond LIFT. What we're saying to the companies with this is we're taking a bet as you as an entrepreneur. If you're successful, we want the money back, and so we're going to take a security interest in the assets of your equipment, in the assets of your company, maintain a position as a creditor, and if you're successful, we want to be paid back. We want to, to the degree that we can, secure that. However, we're taking a bet on the entrepreneurs, at least how the program is presented, and we're suggesting that no personal guarantees are required for this program. Again, the state of North Dakota will lift no personal guarantees and no security on equipment, 100% bet on the company. We're taking a little step further here locally, but suggesting no personal guarantees. We may talk about that here in a minute. Loans must be matched dollar for dollar. The growth fund through the Accelerate program will not be the sole funder of any program. They need to bring at least $250,000 or the amount requested as a match for that to demonstrate that others are buying in on the company, the investors, and all of that. We have on the second page, in terms of funding cap, it's been suggested that we take a look at 15% of the JDA's liquid assets as the portfolio parameters. I think that's fine. I think this can evolve as your discussions around how to manage the growth fund portfolio evolves over subsequent years. So I think that's a great place to start. Ms. Storstad has suggested that, in terms of managing cash flow, the JDA cash, that I really limit the first year to $1.5 million. So if we max out all loans, that would be 6 deals, and I think that's reasonable. We're presenting it as a soft cap, so if we do exceed that, we'll come back to you. We'll take a look at the cash resources that the growth fund has and the opportunity to deal flow, and if you're so motivated, we could do more if we wanted to, but we'll move forward with, with your concurrence, $1.5 million next year cap. In terms of the process, I'll talk about it a little bit now, and then we have a short presentation. We've had some conversation about a specific due diligence committee, and really come to the recognition through a lot of conversation that really this group has the expertise and the experience to really be that. With the expanded private sector composition, and Mr. Chairman Weber, with your leadership advocating that, we have a really good group. Just wrote down just some quick notes here. We have senior leadership in traditional lending, experience supporting entrepreneurs and startup companies, small business ownership, current and former, business development, real estate development, and investment experience. So I think from our standpoint that's a very good cross-section, a very good amount of expertise. I'm going to talk in a little bit about being able to bring in further expertise as situations require. In terms of metrics, the program is focused on tech, so therefore the metrics should be in kind, and so we're taking a look at increased number of technology jobs in the county, increased number of tech firms operating in the county, and improved technology location quotient. I think we've talked about, and if we haven't, I'll repeat, that we have a 0.33 location quotient, which means we have a third of a typical region's tech jobs. With the UND computer science department, I think we all agree that we can do better in that regard. So we're going to be tracking that, and we hope confident that will grow with the investment in this area. I want to walk through just a little bit of the management, or how this program, the administration of this program, and again, compliment Ms. Richards and her team preparing this slide. Well, I thought this was how this worked.
Brett, or
okay, we'll just go there.
Maybe you could hit the lights just for the crowd. I think to your right.
Okay. Could use all the help I can get. Perfect. Okay. All right. In terms of process, this process really when the applications come to the growth fund. So we like to say across the street. We'll highlight though that the process really does start with the EDC, and Brandon is pointing this as our director of business development. So he'll be working with the companies, and our entire team will, and bringing in expertise as we feel is necessary to really do due diligence of our own before we bring it to you. Our EDC board will take a look at these and make a recommendation to bring them over to you for your consideration. So I want to talk about that. That's part of the process as well. When it does come over across the street, again, as we like to say, that this will be reviewed by staff, so Ms. Richards and her team, schedule a growth fund committee meeting, and there's been some discussion among the members that maybe this might be a special meeting, and we'll defer to you on that, but I think that might make some sense. We'll also, that first meeting, we're going to ask the entrepreneurs or the business owners to do a bit of a pitch deck, and I'll talk through the elements of that in just a moment. And then you may very well, and I think it's likely that you will ask some very pointed questions, and you may ask some follow-up information, because these are early stage and high risk and not collateralized like you would normally see. So you're going to ask for some information that will be brought back at a later time for final deliberation. And this very much mirrors a LIFT process. They do a pitch, ask for information, bring it back, and they make a recommendation or a final decision the following month. So I think that's reasonable in terms of the approach for the program like this. That application would be presented finally at another Growth Fund Committee meeting. It could be on a typical Monday night or a special one as you deemed appropriate, and then move forward for JD approval. Oops. Applicant information. Ms. Richard provided a copy of the state's LIFT program application in your packet. It asks for much the same information does the Growth Fund application presently. So I won't read it to you, but this information is requested by your application as well, and we would ask that of the entrepreneurs. The pitch deck, I think this is really important. Again, this is, we're talking about debt and we're talking about taking a security interest, but these are early stage, not personally guaranteed, high risk. So even though this is a debt instrument, I think that this process, or we think, I should say, this collaborative process thinks that we should view this as a bit of an investment pitch and ask for the same information as you would receive in such a meeting. So we've just kind of highlighted the key elements, and we believe that we should give the business owners the direction that they should address this information and any other information that you suggest this evening or later on in the process. We want to have consistency with respect to our presentation, so you have some consistency to consider. So again, I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. The key players, all of this information is extremely important, but when you're talking about an investment in a company like this at this stage, the investment, the commitment, the financial commitment of the entrepreneurs is extremely important. So you're going to want to ask a lot of questions about that in particular. Again, go to market strategy, stage of development, critical risk and challenges. We all should make sure that the entrepreneurs have done their due diligence in this area and considered these things, but this is another element that I think should be really questioned diligently by the committee. We want to make sure that the folks that are here looking for this type of investment and thought about these things very critically, and you want to be comfortable with their responses. Really, that is the end of our presentation here this evening. Just wanted to walk through the key elements of what we think the program parameters should be in terms of terms, as well as the process. Again, Ms. Richards and her team had a lot to do with presenting this information. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any questions. I would as well. Ultimately, looking for your feedback and moving this forward to the JDA in 2 weeks.
Very good. What you've presented is simple and elegant and betrays the amount of work that's gone into this. So thanks. This is actually, at least a couple of years in the making, I think, in many ways.
I'm not sure about a while.
A while. It's been a little while.
That might be strong.
And it was an elegant presentation, concisely given, and with some time for discussion. We're not looking for a vote today, but just a green light on the idea, along with any feedback. If I may, I'd like to make note of this review process. I think legally it makes sense for us to remain as the Growth Fund Committee. There's no need to create a separate committee. However, when reviewing Accelerate applications, it would be my preference, depending on the comments of the other committee members, that we have those meetings solely for the purpose of reviewing Accelerate applications. Ms. Richards, you're very busy and you're always bringing us new work, and it's often very time-sensitive work, but to the greatest degree possible, I think that it would be useful for us to take a deep dive into these loan applications. Unlike other loan applications that we receive, these will not have a previous entity doing due diligence. Is that correct, Mr. Lund?
Yeah, and I thank you very much, Chairman Weber. I think for a couple of things. First of all, we won't have the due diligence partner typically that you would have with the PACE loan. That loans that we've seen tonight has a lead lender, and they've done that. Now, we do need to do some for ourselves because they're doing due diligence for their benefit, but nevertheless, that work has been done, so that will be likely missing in this case. In addition, because of the nature of these loans, I think that you'll be talking about confidential and financial information with the applicants, and I think you would be going into executive session, maybe even every time you hear the first presentation. And from my standpoint, my opinion only, if you had a special meeting, that would sort of signal that this is a special meeting to media and the like, that we may very well be going into executive session to talk about financial information, projections, confidential business, trade secrets, those types of things. State law does provide that you need to have those conversations in executive session and cannot release that to the public.
And the process that you're proposing here would have these Accelerate Review Committee meetings, but then there would also be a second bite by this committee. We would have additional time to think about that, make other inquiries, and then we would come back and review it again a second time, at least a second time, as the Growth Fund Committee. Both would be Growth Fund Committee, but very good.
Yeah, that's right. And in addition, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, so I'll maybe repeat myself, but I think that you would likely and want maybe even some specialized expertise in certain areas during the deliberation process. And I won't speculate what that might be. It might be technology, it might be an industry. And so whatever group that we put in place, and again, I think the Growth Fund Committee is well situated and well experienced to do that. No one has every expertise that you're going to need to consider these things. So I think that it would be wise during certain application and deliberations to bring in that expertise to the degree that it can be accessed.
Very good. And the mayor's office has been deeply involved in these discussions. Ms. Richards, it appeared that you may have had something to add a couple times there.
I absolutely concur. I think that these loan review committee meetings, we're obviously doing lots of regular business during these regular meetings, and so to try to do both during one would get to be a bit of a marathon. So I think you're absolutely right. The Growth Fund Committee will meet as a loan review committee. Then you'll almost make a recommendation to yourself as the Growth Fund Committee, and then that recommendation would go on to JDA. So a minimum of 3 meetings for these, and possibly more if you feel that it's called for based on the particulars of a request.
So we're asking for a lot more work from committee members. Is the pay change at all?
Double.
Double.
Maybe not counselors.
We'll bring cookies.
Very good. Mr. Holt, please.
Thank you. Mr. Lund, you mentioned no personal guarantee, correct? Did I hear you correctly?
You did hear that.
Okay, so when you said that, I looked down at the banker on the committee here just for reaction. He didn't pass out, so that's good. I'm wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Sure.
Just, in the business world, I haven't done much without a personal guarantee, ever. So is it largely, you mentioned we're taking bets on these companies. Is it largely symbolic, or do you see it as an actual barrier to application or approval? Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I can, maybe helpful to the degree we have time to talk about the evolution of this conversation. I think we first entered this conversation as potentially making an equity investment, but yet through conversations we thought these companies were so early stage, in many cases not valued, that taking a position as a creditor would be advantageous. If something went wrong, we could take a look at some of the assets that they have for recovery. We've got some feedback from some local entrepreneurs that very much have informed at least our thoughts on this, and I know it's a point of discussion. There are, some of the entrepreneurs that even this group has supported, they are resources that are available, but they are very sympathetic to their geographies, i.e., we'll be happy to invest in you, but move to Portland. And so we're trying to be aggressive with this program. We're trying to take a bet on the entrepreneurs and deliver the message that we're supporting you in the creation of your business and the expansion and growth of your business here, taking a position as a creditor. But there's competition for resources, and entrepreneurs in this space and their high growth don't have the ability to provide enough personal guarantee to secure the resources that they need to grow. And they're just not in a position to do that, is the feedback. And so, again, taking a step further than the state and taking a collateral position on the assets that they have, having a position as a creditor, but saying we're betting on you and your business idea, and we want you to grow here. I think taking that next steps limits the amount of companies that will take advantage of that resource, and which is another way to say that we think that they may likely go other places for those resources that aren't asking for that same additional step. It's a bit of a different mindset, but this is a bit of a different program, and being aggressive and trying to grow particularly this area of our economy.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry.
Yeah, just Mr. Lund, thanks for being here. I'm totally okay actually with the whole concept of not actually having a personal guarantee, and the main reason is that's why I also like the idea of taking a step back, of having like a preliminary of us getting together to really scrutinize it. I think in order to facilitate and to create an environment for high growth, and these are high-risky, endeavors from I don't want to stereotype, but probably younger individuals, tech-savvy individuals that might not have a ton of capital. And I think if we can create that environment, that's our job then, is to sit down and really to scrutinize it and to break it down. Do we think this is going to be successful? Because if we truly believe that it's going to be successful and the impacts it could make, the personal guarantee should be irrelevant. If we truly believe it's going to be successful and we're willing to invest in it. Of course, that's the inherent risk we take, but I think that is probably a key element to have as part of the program. Also, one quick comment or maybe a suggestion I would have for the chair is that in those first meetings, if we could do it in one, love the idea of it being kind of behind closed doors because it's probably a lot of sensitive information that they'd be sharing. I don't know if we can or can't do that with being with the growth fund, but like an executive committee. And I also think that if we could do it in maybe a little more of an informal setting, I feel like that might foster a little bit better dialogue. Just instead of somebody coming up somewhere and saying, all right, you talk, it's more of a, hey, what do you think on this? It's more spitballing back and forth. And I think that in the business discussions I've had with different entrepreneurs and different things that we may be involved with from experience, I think that goes a lot further of just sitting down. It's not as a little less formal. We'll have a formal opportunity when they come up in front of the formal committee. But for that first one, I think it'd be best if we could have it a little more informal, a lot more dialogue, because there's probably a lot of questions and a lot of personal questions that we might want to dive into that'd just be a suggestion as well.
Very good. A couple of responses there. First of all, it must be a public meeting. So press is welcome, the public is welcome. One of the reasons that we moved up here is we had concerns from council members that they didn't have access to a recording, so we moved up here so that there could be a recording. With that all noted, I'm not unsympathetic to the idea of a more relaxed setting down in A102 or somewhere else here in City Hall, but the closed session is a different matter when we're looking at more sensitive financial information or secret sauce kind of items. But the bulk of the meeting, the opening and the closing of the meeting would have to be public, yes. But I appreciate the comments, and we'll keep that in mind as we move forward, because that's what you're looking for, is this kind of feedback today, right?
Absolutely,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wolf, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lund, Ms. Richards. I like this. I'm in support of this program. I didn't fall over when I saw no personal guarantee. I do agree with Mr. Lund that to be competitive, these types of things in this space, that's probably something that there'll be some interest, which is why we're trying to do this. With that said, no personal guarantee. The terms we're looking at, UCC filing, I know why we would do that. With these types of loans, I would guess what we'll see is that there's very little collateral type position. So these are very high-risk loans, just by their nature. That was just more of a comment, but I'm okay with the structure and starting how that would begin. The approval process, I do like the fact that it comes to the EDC, the city, and although you're not, we wouldn't necessarily have a lender looking at this, but with your board and your process, bringing forward what fits in whatever boxes we're trying to create before it gets to the committee, I think that makes good sense. I do agree that these types of discussions, their initial meeting, I think executive session is absolutely going to be key to really dig into these opportunities, and I do agree. I think these are 2-3 type of meetings before we move forward. So those would be my comments. I like how we're setting metrics. I know that how we define success. Where are we at with the number of jobs right now? The quotient, you mentioned it earlier, but I think that'd be important for us to monitor. But with that said, my question would be on the 15% cap, or as far as the liquid assets, and then it looks like we're looking to limit it at 1.5 million. Why the 15%? What's starting with that as far as a goal to hit 15% as opposed to something less? Any comments there?
I'm going to...
Ms. Storstad.
Yes, Mr. Wolf, members of the committee, maybe I can help answer that. We're looking at just what is exactly that right percent, and is it a percent of your total portfolio or a percent of the the liquid assets. We settled in after discussion, just to look at this $3 million cap, as we have a lot of moving parts and wanting to see the results of corporate center sale and community needs assessment and the federal money and budgeting. And we just have a lot of moving parts right now. We set this for now with, the thought process that this is a good place to start, and we'll reanalyze this as we go through and annually, and not to prevent things for coming forward for discussion, but as more of a starting point to let's set some parameters here and just relook at this as we move forward and try to track that success.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Storstad. And I think we do have to have a cap. I'm more of a 5 to 10% person. That's just my thought, and I don't know if what we feel the demand would be. We're talking about limiting it at 1.5 million the first year. That's more of that, in that 5 to 10% range. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but that's my only point here that to me is, we don't know what the demand will be. We hope it's going to be great, but should we start with a cap smaller and then revisit it? That'd be my only comment or question.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf, and thank you for your input into this process over the last many months. And Ms. Storstad, thanks for your review from city financial perspective. Mr. Kavami and then Ms. Whitney.
So there will or will not be an official vetting process? It sounds like there's not, right?
Well, I think that, yes, with the EDC, with the Growth Fund Committee, and with your asking for additional expertise within that process. So I would define that as an official vetting process, but you may not.
Sure, sorry, no, excuse me, a vetting process before it makes it to us. So is that the responsibility of the EDC or?
Sure.
Yeah,
Mr. Kwame, it's all of the loans, I shouldn't say all of them, but just about all the loans that you see are reviewed by, Brandon primarily works with them, presents them to our board, we take a look at them, we understand the due diligence that's been done ahead of time, take a look at loan to value, and we make a recommendation as to whether we believe that the Growth Fund Committee should consider them, and we will do the same here. I will say to you that we are going to do more work on these, and we're going to pull in some expertise ahead of time to make sure the questions that we think you'll ask, we have answers to. We'll never be 100% with that, but we're going to try to get as close as we can. And we're going to go through a process on our own before we bring it to you to feel that it's a good process. We have two most recently to describe, tailoring and autonomy, and we had a presentation at the EDC board, a lot of discussion, and before they came over here, there was a lot of when we presented to the Growth Fund Committee, there was a lot of discussion at the Growth Fund Committee and within the city as well. So they were well vetted, in my opinion, and I think I see a very similar process for these moving forward, albeit within the confines of a program now, rather than, one or two off type of opportunities.
If I may, I'd like to apologize for any confusion I may have caused. What I was referring to is most of the loans that come to this committee have the benefit of due diligence from a third-party loan institution before those loans come to us, because they're involved in that.
And I appreciate it. That's what I was hoping for, and I assumed that was what was going to happen, but I just wasn't sure. So along those same lines, is the EDC going to be responsible for marketing this? Or is that fall on the city? Or is that everybody? Or is that, just curious if there's a plan for that?
I guess we haven't talked about it. We're going to market it, and I'm sure the city is too. I mean, this is an innovative program. We've actually been congratulated by the State Commerce Department, Bank of North Dakota, for having this discussion, and so we feel pretty good about that, and I think you should too, and we're going to brag about that, and in doing so, we'll market the program.
Perfect, thank you. And last question is just, as we're setting these special meetings, I think that the information we're going to receive is going to be probably quite detailed. Yep. So I imagine that we probably would have that information maybe a week in advance or something like that. Being that they will be special meetings, we can adjust that.
We can't create a rigid schedule for you, but yes, we will be flexible with the idea that this is going to be a more intense review and on special dates. So yeah, we wanted to get some feedback on what would be useful to you, but we are not going to be setting up any sort of rigid structure. It'll be very much kind of on a case-by-case basis in terms of setting these schedules for the meetings.
And then last question, and then our resources, so we receive it, we have a question, do we go to Keith, do we go who's, or just depend?
We haven't talked about this, but my answer would be that once the application has been turned over to the Community Development Office and to the committee, that communication will go directly back to the Community Development Office. We work collaboratively all the time, and so if there's information that we can gather to inform the process, we'll do that, and likely we'll do that. But I think the line of communication is, once we bring it over, it belongs to the city/growth fund.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm very excited for this.
Thank you, Mr. Comey. I anticipate EDC will take the lead on promoting this, and in fact, in bragging about it across the state and across North America and beyond. So, yes, very good. Ms. Whitney.
Thank you, Chair Weber. Thank you, Mr. Lund, for being here and for this program. I agree this is something that is needed, and I think will address a lot of concerns around capitalization for startups. Couple questions. I think to echo some of the no personal guarantees, I think that's a good piece. One thought or comment would be, similar to, I know with the LIFT program when it first was rolling out, are we ensuring or making sure that there's at least some other form of investment, whether it's from other sources, or given that these are high-risk startups, I guess one of the ways to demonstrate traction or for, support for this concept beyond the experts that may look at something, one of the ways to demonstrate that traction is there's at least some other form of investment that may have been put behind the idea or the company even at that early stage.
Sure. Ms. Whitney, the program description that is in draft form waiting your feedback suggests that this committee, and by extension everyone in the process, would review the prior investments, the goals and metrics that they've achieved as a result of those previous investments in terms of the goals they set at the time, as well as the quality of that investment. It's different if you're raising private capital or money from your family, and I think that we as an EDC, and when it comes to the city, and you as a loan or review committee should be considering the quality of those investments. Programmatically, hard for me to say, this is a one-for-one match, but I think it's fair to say that we need to take a look at the entire investment they've received to date and understand where it came from and how successful they've been at deploying those resources and meeting their goals.
Thank you. And then one other question, I just want, or feedback to consider, the end of this loan program is a balloon payment similar to the LIFT program. And if, one of those companies is getting LIFT funding and they're getting an Accelerate loan funding, they're both going to have balloon payments that potentially are coming due all at the same time. Wonder if there's any consideration as to other options that we might be interested in talking with those companies about other than just a balloon payment as that's coming due, given that that may be a pretty high burden for some of those companies to meet if they're doing multiple, loan programs of similar terms.
I'll respond by saying my opinion that we hope that they're wildly successful within that 5 years and there's some merger or acquisition and we just get paid out all debt holders. So that would be wonderful. I think that my opinion again is we should set the expectation that we're paid at the end of 5 years. That's what we're expecting. Should that not be possible, there's always the option to refinancing it. There's no more dollars. Obviously, you'll take it out of one portfolio and put it in another. But then I think traditional lending practices apply. If we've gone that 5 years and they need to roll that into traditional debt, there's personal guarantees, there's UCCs, there's everything down the board. So my suggestion, and I think we might have even addressed that to some extent in this staff report.
Yeah. And then one other just comment, I think, thank you actually also for the pitch deck, right? Different criteria within that. I know in working with a lot of companies, especially startups, they ask for some structure to those pitch decks. Might I suggest we put a time limit on that, please, and thank you, as someone that's sat through many pitch decks, just to keep the meeting moving.
Ms. Whitney, I think it's in their best interest to be succinct as well.
Given that time is always limited, as I see, we're hitting our mark as well, so.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Whitney, and thanks for the discussion. I don't want to cut things short, but I believe we need to make the room available for another meeting. Is that the case, or? We're good. Great, okay, fantastic. Further comments? Yes, Mr. Curry.
I kind of have a question, kind of back to going through this again. And naturally they're going to probably won't be able to get traditional financing. Are we going to make it a requirement to have a bank turn down letter? I mean, I think in the nature the nature of these loans, they probably aren't ready for traditional financing, but I just always want to make sure that we're not necessarily competing, if they have the ability to get private funding. I don't want to compete with the commercial lenders either. So I don't know if we need to make that a requirement, but maybe something just to consider in our due diligence as well. And the next question too, or just a thought, is that I love the overall concept, of course. In regards to, and I don't want to overextend ourselves either, and I agree with Chris, with maybe 5-10% or whatever that might be. However, I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole us either or handcuff us. I mean, why exactly is it only, $250 for the maximum loan amount? If somebody comes in with an idea that's just phenomenal, I mean, do we have the liberty to say, would they go to $350, or I mean, are we certainly?
That's a soft cap, isn't it? Is that how we're referring to it at this point?
Chairman Weber, Mr. Curry, well, the cap is soft, so if we exceed the 1.5 that's established, we can come back and say, we have 2 or 3 more applicants and we think they're high value and you should consider them. I think the growth fund always has discretion, whether you close the door and accelerate Grand Forks, you have other resources, you can mirror something that is the exact same terms from your revolving loan portfolio, whether you say it's in that bucket or that bucket. So I think easy for me to say, I'll defer to my left here, you're right, but I think that we have the flexibility to go beyond something if there's a tremendous opportunity. I've always felt that great ideas attract resources, and we'd have that conversation with you.
Yeah, I think I just want to make
Ms.
sure
Richards?
that we...
Sorry.
No.
Well, we will have a program description, and then it will be marketed with a cap of $250,000. But there's always that JDA discretion or growth fund discretion, and that is kind of written in invisible ink throughout our policies and procedures. So I think it's always understood that if you're so dazzled by an entity's presentation, then you will direct staff to do more, and we certainly can.
Yeah, just my main point was just that I don't want to, by nature, this is going to be atypical type ideas and stuff that we're not used to seeing. So I don't want to necessarily try to frame it as more traditional lending, or maybe it's to make an expansion on the warehouse or to buy equipment or whatever. Those are a little easy to wrap your head around. I just want to make sure we're fluid and we can adapt if we need be for something that's worth it, I guess, is the only point. But also, and to maybe Mr. Wolf's with a lender background, but still tread carefully. I mean, we still want to be good stewards of the resources that we have. So but more or less a comment than anything. But thank you.
With regard to the 10% or 15% or 5%, I think these discussions had started off around 10%, and I'd been pushing a little bit, so maybe the 10% turns out to, we'll have another discussion about this, yes. But today you're seeking feedback, and you've received that feedback. Any questions for, Mr. Holt, please.
Yep.
Ms. Dorstead, yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Chairman Weber, members of the committee, and I believe when it was first stated, it was spoken as a % of total portfolio. What we are suggesting is a % of liquid cash. So it's a much smaller % when looking at the complete portfolio. We already have about $1 million in high-risk loans. This would be over a 4-year period of time, building to another $2 million. For a total of $3 million. So, but we did want to put the cap of 1.5 in any 1 year. And like we've talked about, this is a soft cap. Everything can come for discussion, but we wanted to put some parameters on there and grow it over. We have it in our projection as growing over 4 years, $500,000 a year, on top of the $1 million that's already in the high-risk loan area. Always open for discussion of the committee, but those are the, when we speak of a %, the base mark changed a bit when we were speaking of that. Instead of total portfolio, we're looking at as of the liquid cash.
Very good, thanks for that explanation. It was a very wise committee member who got us thinking about our portfolio rather than just liquid assets. And so, so thank you for that. And Mr. Wolf, does that change your thoughts at all in terms of the percentage?
Again, it's, I appreciate that, Ms. Dorstead. I don't know what the right number is. I'm just, and I understand the difference between portfolio as well as liquid cash. I understand it. I don't know what the right number is, but I'm more of a 10% guy, I guess, to start. And then keeping it fluid, but we've got a whole committee here, so.
And I think my pushing was as much rhetorical as anything. I wanted to show that the city was prepared to really support the development of tech in our community, so.
Since we're not as pressed for time as we thought, Ms. Roman, I'll just say, Mr.
Please.
Weber, that, that portfolio balance is going to change. We have the corporate center where you do, and that's going to be sold. You have land in the business park, and there's interest there, and as land sells, you lose land, you gain cash. So I think your discussion's ongoing in terms of what that portfolio balance should look like, and you can't snap your fingers if it's this and you want it to be that. That has to be an evolution, transition over time. So I think a deliberative, sort of careful process, starting slow, being thoughtful about what this should be long-term, I think is very healthy. And selfishly, I'm thinking, let's get something on the books now with some ability to do some deals and see how that works and see what the deal flow is like, and we can adjust really at any time with more and better information down the line.
Well said, well said.
Yeah,
Mr. Gavone, please.
I'd agree. It seems like being that it's a soft cap, no matter what, it's kind of up to us, right? So if we set it at 10 or 15, no matter what, we have to approve it. It doesn't really matter, right? What the cap is, right?
Yeah. Mr. Bromley, I think in that regard, a lower number is likely good. No, let's not go any lower, but anyway. Because you reach that, you have to have a conversation about should we go further. If you set it too high, you might find yourself in a position that, wait a minute, we went too far. So I think it's always good to be cautious, particularly when you're implementing a new program, a new concept. It is aggressive, and so let's just be sure as we move forward that we're making the right investments, we're doing it right, and then give us an opportunity to, if we reach that, that would be fantastic. I'd love to be able to say that in 6 months we have had 6 deals that we think are going to be very successful, and I think at that point we'd suggest and try to convince Maureen to maybe let's move a little bit further.
Our award-winning finance department is...
That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
We should always be listening to them. I think there was a reason to put some cap on it, but they're looking for feedback.
Yeah.
And if I were to just offer, my gut is 10% is probably where my mind was, but I'll let you guys make those smart decisions. But if I wanted to just note, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Chairman Weber, I think that, and just conferring quickly with Ms. Richards here, I think we'd like, if it pleases the committee and the chair, a motion to move these terms and any, sort of firm recommendations for alteration forward to the JDA for consideration. We'd like to have that approval on the 3rd, is it? May 3rd, to then, with that action, create a program description that we can move forward with. So a lot of discussion. I'm not sure how much of that you would say is formal sort of changes to what you have in front of you, if there was something you're so inclined to make those amendments, or just simply, if you're again inclined, not to assume, make the motion to move this forward.
Committee members, do we feel like we have a clear enough consensus in regard to the feedback that's been provided today to provide some sort of a motion for a green light for staff to move forward with that feedback?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Fantastic. Mr. Wolf.
I'll second. Are we at 10%?
I think the only sticking point is the percentage.
Is that we fine? I'll second that 10%.
Ms. Dorstad,
Now, just so I'm clear, and I'm
Yes.
good with the 10%, are you talking of the liquid assets?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
and so in terms of dollar amount, instead of, what is it currently, 3 million over 5 years?
Yeah, we're growing it up to 3 million over 4 years
Okay.
currently, and open for feedback.
So we'd be going, if we're going from 15 to 10, we're going...
We go to 2 million?
2 million over 4 years?
Is that what our first target would be, right?
Yeah.
So you go from 6 to 4.
What that would do, it would change how you're looking at the annual cap as well. With doing that, right now you have $1,025,000 in high-risk loans. If you change the percent, that would bring it up to a total of about, 2 million instead of 3 million. So it's just under $1 million that you would add to that portfolio from what's currently already issued.
And it was my hope that we would be able to at least pursue a more aggressive stance, but what's your thought there?
Again,
You could cut
I'm
the
interested
difference
in,
and go
if
12
you
and a
add
half.
another million, we don't know what the demand is going to be. We're going to be talking about this frequently. I don't have a problem, as Mr. Lund said, if we started higher, If we start it lower, it gives us the ability to talk about it. That would be my preference, and adding another $1 million from where we're at, that's slightly more than 10%, so we could get 4 deals, would be maybe my thought.
Okay. So what we're looking at, I believe then, is something close to 10%, so that we have $1 million available for 4 of these deals the first year, understanding that if we have a tremendous first year, we can review that even before the end of that first year. And in that spirit, it's my understanding that we have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion. Mr. Kavami.
I just got lots of questions for Keith today. So are you, what I don't want to hurt is your marketing efforts. Sure. So are you going out and marketing up to $250,000, or are you going and marketing $1 million a year? Or what, I know you don't have that yet, so I'm already asking you questions, but.
Mr. Fahmy, we'd market up $250,000 loans with these terms to support the growth of technology companies in Grand Forks County. I would hope that we'd be, crazy successful and be back here shortly saying we reached $1 million, and then we can have this discussion again. I will say, not to try to change the motion, when we first started the discussion, at least I was anyway, thinking about the overall portfolio in terms of assets. There's land, there's buildings, there's cash, and all that adds up to a number, and taking a percentage of that number. Again, measured approach, conservative, that's fine moving forward. I just hope we're back here again saying we need more.
Okay, and staff, does that motion make sufficient, is it sufficiently articulated at this point?
It will be.
We'll make sure that the minutes reflect that.
Very good. Further discussion?
I mean, the only other
Yes,
thought I
please.
would say is you could go in the middle, and if you don't want to go quite as high as 15, but don't go quite as concerned, you can do 12.5. I mean, you can go somewhere in the middle too, and cut the difference. Be somewhat aggressive and give you a little bit more. I mean, that's just one other thought, but I'll just throw out there.
Now, let me think about this in terms of process. This is feedback. There would still be a more finely articulated program would come forward to this group for one last review before going to the JDA. Is that correct? No. This would go to the JDA.
This will go for the JDA for action, and then the EDC will start marketing the program. We'll develop application materials and then a formal program description that ties it all up for the big red ribbon.
This feedback will be taken into that articulation that'll move forward to the JDA on May 3rd. The JDA, of course, they can do what they want with it.
Raise or lower that cap or anything else.
Very good. Mr. Kafami.
So the 10% million a year, that gives you guys 4 pitches. So changing it would have to be by increments really of that 250,000 to really make a difference, potentially, right? Or I guess that's only if it's maximum.
Right, that was my going to be,
Okay.
Mr. Kalami. Someone could approach with a 150 ask, and we don't know where we're going to be there. I guess in my mind, I'm thinking folks are coming forward for the full request, but we'll see what happens.
Sure. Well, I hope that we're wrong and that you need more.
As do I. Yep.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed, same sign. My apologies for having my microphone off there. Motion passes. Very good. And then we're just, anything further for the good of the order?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Exciting day.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
From Mr. Holt, second from Mr. Wolf. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thanks.